Okay, let's see. All right. I want to. All right. Good evening, everyone. Welcome and thank you for joining us for tonight's Ward D Council Candidate Forum. We're honored to have 4 of the 5 candidates with us this evening. For the record, the invitation to join us was extended to all 5 of the candidates. Our questioners for this evening are representatives from the sponsoring groups and local community activists. They will introduce themselves before they ask their first question. This evening's forum will begin with each candidate making a 90-second opening statement. There will be a ticker across the bottom of the screen at 30 seconds and one when time is up. Please be mindful of your time. Cordiality is expected, and anyone personally attacking a candidate will forfeit their remaining time to answer the question. The candidate being attacked will be allowed 30 seconds rebuttal time and then their full 90 seconds to answer their question. All candidates will be called upon in alphabetical order, which will shift 1 for each question. Starting in reverse order, Mr. Torres will start for opening statements and Mr. Ambrosi will start for closing statements. Closing statements are 2 minutes for each candidate. Finally, this broadcast is being recorded and will be available for reviewing beginning on Wednesday on the www.rnajc.org website, as well as our RNAJC YouTube channel and our Riverview Neighborhood Association Facebook page. So let's start with, I'm going to put all the candidates back on the screen, and let's start with you, Mr. Torres.
Well, thank you, Ms. Patrick. Thank you. I hope you can hear me well. This is Rafael Torres. I'm a candidate for Ward D in the election, for a special election for Michael Young, who is the councilman. As you know, I hope you're all safe. And of course, thank you on your continued leadership. The Riverview Neighborhood Association, the Heights Community Coalition, Washington Park. Thank you for offering this format in the COVID-19 world to talk to you. Good evening, and I'm glad to be here tonight to give you a little background on what I would do as a councilman for Ward D. I'd like to first acknowledge the late Michael Young, who fought for the Jersey City resident. His leadership would be missed, and I hope to continue working for the community as hard as he did. I am a lifelong resident of Jersey City, graduating in 1978 at Ferris High School. I joined the United States soon after, United States Air Force, to become a staff support clerk. Years later, I will return to Jersey City and become a firefighter, retiring 27 years later in public service. If I am given a chance, and along with my experience, I can offer a full-time commitment as your councilperson here in Jersey City. Post-COVID-19, my full-time commitment with a lifetime of prevention is just what the Heights needs right now. Protecting children and our seniors will be my utmost priority. I am ready to answer your questions. If you like, I will be offering transcripts to these questions and answers on my post at jcresident.com. On my site, you can read and create emergency plans that I will be talking about. And that's what I like to do. And we'll talk later about that. Thank you.
All right, Patrick, you're next.
Hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Ambrosi. I am a lifelong Jersey City Heights resident. I graduated from PS28, County Prep High School, Montclair University, and have a master's in public administration from St. Peter's University. You may already know me from my decade and a half of service to our community. I am the founder of the Leonard Gordon Park Conservancy. It's a nonprofit park organization that advocates for the maintenance and renovations of Leonard Gordon Park. We have supported and invested in our community through our many family-friendly events, from our Halloween bash, Easter egg hunts, Heights Life, and Christmas tree lighting. I am also a trustee within the Jersey City Parks Coalition and a former board member of the Jersey City Reservoir Preservation Alliance, as well as a board member of the Hudson County Young Dems. In 2015, I served as an AmeriCorps Vista with the City of Jersey City, Department of Public Works, where I was instrumental in the creation of JC Shovels, a volunteer program that helps low-income seniors with free snow shovel removal, as well as the Great Jersey City Cleanup. It's a one-day citywide cleanup that mobilized our city agencies and thousands of residents. I served as the chairman for 2 years. I am also an elected committee person within my district. I'd like to thank all the community groups for having this debate, and I look forward to answering the questions. Thank you.
Oh, wow. I love it when people are short and to the point. Okay. Buttons. Okay, Cynthia, your opening statement, please.
Okay. Hi, everyone in Ward D. My name's Cynthia Hadjianis, and I'm hoping to represent you on the City Council. I'm an attorney with my own small law practice here in the Heights, and I've been very active locally for the past 20 years. I'm a co-founder of the Jersey City Reservoir Preservation Alliance. I'm one of the original people who saved the reservoir. Some of you may remember me as Michael Youn's campaign manager. I helped him win back in 2012 when he first became the council person. And those are just two examples, but I've worked really hard on a lot of difficult things over the years, and I've succeeded on quite a few. I'm not going to get into my whole long biography because I'm not as young as some of the other candidates, and I could be here talking for 10 or 15 minutes to just give you my backstory, but I do have a website. It's www.cynthiafortheheights.org, and you can go there if you'd like to read a little bit more about me. My ballot slogan is Reaching New Heights. It's about protecting what's special about the Heights, because we have a lot of wonderful things here, and then improving upon it and bringing things to a whole new level. I believe I have the skills to hit the ground running on the City Council. I've read ordinances, I've written them, I've worked on resolutions, I've worked on contracts. My whole career has been communicating and negotiating, and I think I have the skills to do a good job representing all of you on the City Council. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Cynthia. And last, Councilman Saleh. I'm going to unmute you. And your opening statement, please.
Thank you, Jocelyn. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for the RNA, the Riverview Neighborhood Association, the Heights Community Coalition, the Pershing Field Association, Heights Votes, and all the organizations and the residents that are watching here tonight. I am Councilman Yusuf Saleh. I have had the privilege and honor of representing you these last few months as your councilman. I was appointed at the height of the pandemic, and I hit the ground running. And we are living through this unprecedented moment in our nation's history. And in that short time, I've helped coordinate the COVID-19 testing for the residents of Jersey City, the businesses that were reopening. I've helped with landlords and tenant issues to make sure that they stayed in their homes, that people that were unemployed were notified of the critical resources that were at their disposal. And I've personally worked with all the businesses in the Heights to make sure that they stay alive during this time. And since I've been appointed, we have invested $4 million in Central Avenue. We're putting millions of dollars towards our parks, and we have kept the taxes stable. And all of you know my backstory by now. I took a 23andMe, and I'm 100% Heights born and raised. And I'm basically one of 8 with 7 sisters. I'm a loyal son of Jersey City. And I would love to continue to represent you as your councilman. And my one last request is that for those that haven't filled out their census, to fill out their census today at mycensus2020.gov, because no matter who wins this election, we all lose if you don't fill out your census. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, thank you. I'm going to now bring in Brian Rands, who's going to ask our first question for the evening. Each candidate will be given 90 seconds to respond once the question has been asked. So I'm going to add Brian. I'm going to turn that off. And all right, Brian, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you for having me, Jocelyn. For those people who don't know me, my name is Brian Rands. I'm a resident here in the Heights for about 7 years. I'm also on the board for the Riverview Neighborhood Association and the founding member of Heights Votes, which is a nonpartisan initiative to expand civic engagement in our community. So thank you very much for agreeing to run for office. Our democracy is better when you all participate. And the first question we have is regarding the unprecedented public health crisis that our community and country are facing, which is COVID-19. In the event that you're elected to office, you're going to be required to go through policies and engage in constituent outreach. And there's a lot of people who don't have the income they used to. They're struggling to acquire unemployment compensation. They're having difficulties going through welfare. They've lost their jobs. They can't pay their rent. What policies and what initiatives do you guys want to spearhead to assist Heights residents during the COVID-19 public health? Specifically, how do you want to assist the most needy in our community, which often are seniors and people with disabilities? And also, in the event that we have a second wave of COVID, what policies do you want to see implemented to help contain it in the event it comes in for your time?
Okay, Patrick.
And I apologize. The first person who will be speaking on this question will be Patrick Ambrosi, and then I'll be going in ABC order as Jocelyn said. So the next will be Cynthia. The next one after that will be Yusuf, and then Rafael.
Okay, thank you so much. So that question, I think, is on everyone's mind, especially as we start entering our winter months. So look, if I'm elected councilman, one of the first things that we're really going to have to look at is connecting with the county's welfare office and making sure that we're able to give a reasonable timeline in terms of unemployment benefits and everything that's related to that. I think other than that, what we really have to do is look to help our food shelters. I know one of the things that helped out in the summer was here in the Heights, St. John's actually every month distributed food. And I was actually part of the volunteer force that made sure that we got food to our needy residents. So I want to make sure that our nonprofits have the resources in order to get essential services, essential supplies, and food to their homes safe. The other thing that we want to do is we want to make sure that we're helping out homeowners. I know there's a lot of rent relief programs, but we also have to make sure that our homeowners are being taken care of. And one of the things is we have to cap the late interest fee for property taxes. We have to make sure that we're taking care of homeowners during this time who may not be able to collect rent, who are trying to help out their renters. We want to make sure we're helping everyone else out, as well as coordinate with businesses to make sure that they have a plan for indoor dining and outdoor dining, to make sure that they have the equipment and supplies necessary to function and function safely. Thank you.
And Cynthia, you're next.
Yeah. Thank you, Brian. Well, so far, I think the city's had a pretty good COVID response. They did really well with testing. They did really well with contact tracing. And I think we do need to stay the course as we prepare for what might be a second wave in the fall. And all these other things flow from that. If we have a strain on our healthcare system, if we don't have public health, we can't really have economic health either. So I'm hoping we're going to stay the course and people are going to quarantine and Jersey City's going to do the things it's been doing. And as far as protecting our vulnerable populations. I think the second thing after health is housing. The courts haven't really been scheduling hearings yet on evictions, but a lot of landlords have started filing complaints. I think it's always the dynamic in landlord-tenant court where the landlord has more resources, the tenant's not quite sure how to defend itself. I think we need a lot of maybe to help tenants with some legal resources. Same for foreclosures. I think a lot of banks may start initiating foreclosure actions. There's a much more protracted time frame on those, but maybe the city wants to provide some pro bono foreclosure defense to homeowners. And that's not to say that it won't be fair to landlords, but I think like having a lawyer involved on the side of the tenant could help. Okay, sorry. I had more to say, but thank you.
Thank you, Cynthia. And now Councilman Saleh.
Hi, can you hear me? Okay, I'm gonna talk. And so, when we discuss these issues about COVID-19, I've gone through, as an elected official, the first wave, during the height of the first wave, when we were trying to flatten the curve, and we really knew nothing about the virus. And there's still a lot of uncertainty regarding the virus, but there's some things that we do know, which is that it spreads a lot more easily indoors. So as the weather gets colder and people move indoors because of the cold, this virus, in conjunction with the flu season, there will be an inevitable second wave that we have to prepare for. And how do we prepare for this? We need to essentially give out this information to the residents that they are practicing safe social distancing. I was giving out PPE to residents, to seniors, coordinating the testing for these individuals when the health department was swamped with requests. And we want to make sure that we are coordinating on a local and state level this response. And we want to make sure that the businesses are outfitted with different tools, such as for the heat, to make sure that when people dine outside, that they're able to. And we have to make sure that the businesses are abiding by the guidelines in order to flatten the curve. We can't have businesses, essentially ignoring the COVID-19 policies. So we need a unified government response, a coherent government response. And I've been working with the mayor and city council on that.
Hi, thank you. If you can hear me, I will commit to supplementing policy and existing ordinance to enhance the safety policy that protects our citizens. I would work within my ward to hear the concerns of both public and private schools on how we can enhance these policies to make it work. I would not abstain from voting on any new policies to get us through COVID-19 or the budget around it. I will work with the mayor on securing the budget in support of COVID-19 shortfalls by ensuring he and the council address the needs of every citizen in Jersey City. I will work on introducing my own preventive initiatives and other policies to prevent and other policies to create stockpile approaches to school and recreational facilities in the Heights. This will include outreach programs and other preventive services that are done in the city. I was looking at my time. I apologize. I will work on introducing these initiatives and other policies. This is in place. With this in place, it will help me get involved and prepare for a second wave. It would encourage our health resources to work with the civilian population on encouraging flu shots and vaccinations. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Roger Heitman. I'm the treasurer of the Riverview Neighborhood Association. Welcome all to the candidates. My first question concerns the city master plan and the Heights. The Heights is undergoing growing pains. A lot of populations moving in. We already live in a dense community where there is a great demand for more housing. With the impending revisions to the master plan, what would you like to see zoning-wise to improve the Heights, and how would you address the competing needs of parking and new development? Question is for Cynthia.
The new master plan, it's going to be a great opportunity for us in the Heights, because I think, as everybody knows, there's been a lot of zoning by variance going on. And that's particularly true along Kennedy. Most of Kennedy is zoned R1, which means it's for 1 and 2 family dwellings. We've gotten a lot of big condo projects and a big project at the former farmers market approved. I think that may end up being apartments. And we haven't had the opportunity as a community to weigh in on what is the appropriate density along Kennedy. And I have my own opinion on that, but I think if they go through that master plan process, they'll get a better idea of what is appropriate along Kennedy and what the community feels is appropriate along Kennedy. And I'm a big proponent of community supported development. I don't think a handful of people in the planning office or a few members of the zoning board should be making so many of these decisions that impact so many of us. Parking, that's a tough one. I think we should look at that with the master plan. I think there's going to be a patchwork of things that end up helping us with our parking problem. One of the things is that even for people who want to pay to rent a space, they're not quite sure where they can find private parking. It might be nice if there were a survey done of opportunities for private parking, work with churches. Maybe they would want to increase their revenue by renting out their spots overnight. So I'd like to see a survey on that. And I think public transportation is part of the master plan process. Better public transportation will probably help us with some of our parking problems. If higher density projects are approved, I think we need to make sure there's an appropriate amount of parking included in those projects. And I personally see that people don't want a lot of high density projects. I think that should be seriously looked at during the master planning process. Thank you.
Councilman Saleh, same question.
Thank you so much for that question. We're in the midst of reviewing this master plan, and I feel as though what would strongly benefit the Heights is not development for the sake of development, but smart development that is in coordination with the family-friendly culture of the Heights. We don't want those huge high-rises in our neighborhood. We want to make sure that when we do develop, that it's done in an intelligent manner, that is environmentally sustainable, that takes into consideration sewage and water needs, because everything is connected. When you start to look at the development in the Heights, we haven't upgraded our sewage and water facilities to accommodate that. So when you see flooding on Bowers and Webster, or when you see flooding in other areas of the Heights, a lot of our sewage systems and water systems are very antiquated. So they need to be addressed before we can start to grow in that manner. And also, with regards to parking, getting a curb cut for parking should not be automatic for new developments. And that is something, as your councilman, I'm going to look to make sure that we take that and make sure that the Heights does it in a smart, responsible way, because the curb cuts have decimated and exacerbated the parking situation here in the Heights.
Mr. Torres?
Thank you. Yes, thank you for the question. I also think that the resources and this master plan, it's not known to me. I know I will be here, and as council person, I will be part of that process. Of course, when you look at the Heights, it's 1 and 2 family homes. There's not a lot to develop, but I'd like to see the rest of the city help the Heights out for once, in order to reap the benefits of all the other things that have happened around the city. As you know, space to build parking is also scarce. And if you remember, this was a hot topic in 2017, Brian, as you could remember, during a debate that we had in 17. A recent project was proposed by Mayor Fulop, which is the same residential property we were talking about 5 years ago. And I'm sorry, I thought I heard somebody. And the parking authority closed the much needed parking space and renovations that they were doing at their building on Central Avenue. The lost spaces will be in this new condominium facility that was not built yet at the time. 4 years later, it's still not built. This kind of slow process in building structure that we might be able to get a little relief here in the Heights just doesn't happen as fast as it should. The mayor and the council support the alternative transportations, have gained more traction to not promote car usage, but by giving alternative uses like bicycle and the other things that we still do not have here in the Heights, like protected lanes. So these are the things we have to talk and be part of the master plan. The master plan has to also reach across the county, state levels also, and also we need to communicate a little bit more to Hoboken in order to get some of the resources that are on our borderline in Union City, Hoboken, which is a little different than a lot of the other areas of the city. Thank you.
Mr. Ambrosi.
So, the Heights is one of the most residential areas in Jersey City, made up mostly of 1 to 2 family homes, and it has a charm that has allowed for lifelong residents and newcomers to almost fall in love with the Heights almost instantly. So I believe that we need to work on keeping the charm. I'm in favor of looking at rules related to the automatic curb cut, especially in the Western Slope, where I have visited streets where there are 5, 6 new constructions, all homes that did not have parking, which now residents who have lived there for years are having trouble finding off-street parking. So I think that that's something that we need to fix almost immediately, if not yesterday. One of the other things that we need to look at in terms of the master plan is density and a density cap, and particularly how tall buildings can be built on Kennedy Boulevard, on Central Avenue, and Palisade Avenue, which are the 3 main thoroughfares in the Heights. I'm definitely in favor of sustainable, smart development and in community-led development. One of the things that I think that RNA and other community groups have done really well is advocate for that. So that's one thing that, as your councilman, I'm going to continue supporting and making sure that your voice as residents are heard. The other thing is transportation is a big issue here. NJ Transit, we have the Jitney buses, but I think we need to start looking at possibly having a city-owned bus line that connects each ward and can supplement the transportation needs of residents here in the Heights, but also throughout Jersey City. Thank you.
Okay, my next question is regarding the vision for transportation. With the addition of VIA, do you think that is sufficient transportation for the Heights? And what is your vision for intercity transportation for Councilman Saleh?
Thank you so much. Well, with the addition of VIA, we've had thousands of residents from the Heights that have been able to utilize this service for only $2, and that was just in the first quarter alone. So my vision is to continue to expand that program to help bridge the gap between the people that are able to, afford, these kinds of transportations, and also bridge the gap between people that are in other areas of the city that don't have transportation. I felt VIA was a great solution for that. We're expanding it, and I also want everyone to be considerate of the fact that a lot of the world has shifted and changed. COVID-19 has changed the way and where people work and the way people live and where they live. So transportation needs will be shifting in the coming months and coming years ahead. So we have to be cognizant of that, because now people can work from anywhere. So I'll be looking at that as well as other options.
Mr. Torres?
Yes, hi. I have to say that every time I unmute. VIA is a great program. I talk to a lot of people in my family who actually use it. So seeing those things for our seniors, it's a home run. But I like to talk a little bit about the bicycle lanes, because I really do like these bicycle lanes. I've also seen these bicycle lanes being used a lot more. And what better way to go around the city and talk to everybody when you use these bicycle lanes as a way of talking about future programs. And so I like to support that. Currently, projects like the construction that's being done to alleviate Route 3 has been going on for years, and we can't lose sight that on Tunnelie and in that area west of this area, they're building a lot of roads. And I just like to be around the round table to talk to these different agencies in order to see if we could create roads to alleviate our traffic, which are all going to the same place, which is Route 3 towards Route 17, and which we have a turnpike connection. We should maintain these, and we just don't have this. Also, another example is to clear and maintain the weeds and dead areas on Patterson Plank Road. So this is a good opportunity to talk to Hoboken, and maybe Ogden Avenue could actually see the skyline one day. And so talking to Hoboken and talking about these other problem areas on the Palisade Cliffs should be a priority for me as council person. I would like to be at that table to make sure that we talk about everything that is affecting us here in the Heights.
And finally, Ms. Hadjianis?
Roger, could you just repeat the question quickly? Because you faded out on the last word, at least for me.
Okay, sure. The question is regarding the vision for transportation. With the addition of VIA, do you think that this is sufficient transportation for the Heights? And what is your vision for intercity transportation?
Okay. So I haven't taken VIA, and I don't have a bicycle, but I'm more of a bus person. I don't own a car. I do take the bus, and I take the light rail occasionally, which is good. I think gets you to a lot of different places in the city from the Heights. But if ridership goes down, then NJT uses that as an excuse to decrease service. So all of these things that are going to make people abandon taking a bus will then become a reason that the bus service is going to get caught in kind of a downward spiral. So I want to have the same or better level of bus service, and I want it to be more reliable than it is, and maybe more frequent. One example is the 119. I know my campaign manager actually collected GPS data on the 119 bus for a 3-year-long period. He found that there's a lot of absenteeism that leads to fewer buses. The other thing that I think is difficult for us in the Heights, there really isn't a good connection between the Heights and the downtown. You have to go through Journal Square. A lot of times you have to change from the bus to the path, or you have to change from one bus to another bus. I'd like to see a more straightforward way to get downtown on public transportation. It's almost quicker to walk. So I think that's an area where we could use a new route or new service.
Thank you.
Next question?
Next
Okay.
question.
Okay, good evening.
I don't believe I was able to answer that question.
Sorry, I'm sorry. Did we? I'm trying to do so many things here. I didn't realize, Patrick. Okay, I'm glad you.
Okay,
I'm glad you
okay.
spoke up.
No, it's my favorite question. I'm very passionate about it, actually. And I first want to commend RNA's Transportation Steering Committee that they've established. It's really helped advocate for better services for NJ Transit. The problem with NJ Transit is that at the end of the day, it's a monster on its own. The city doesn't control NJ Transit and only just advises on what they want to see and needs of residents. In terms of VIA, I don't believe it's a scalable model to follow. It works in New York City because there's other modes of transportation that they can take, whether it's taxis, the metro, there's different forms. Here in the Heights and throughout Jersey City, there's not many. So we need to start focusing on an interconnected transportation that's going to help residents connect you from the Heights to the West Side and throughout. And one of those ways I think we can do it is by creating our own public run bus line. It's something that can be priced at a certain rate for residents and for seniors, and then priced at another rate for visitors. I think it's something that can really take our city to the next level and really hold. It can really hold the city accountable, and it can, the city can really make sure that they're addressing the needs of transportation as the day goes on. At the end of the day, we can worry about COVID-19 all we want. We're looking on the bright side of things and saying things are going to go back to normal. VIA is a 6-passenger van. How many vans are we possibly going to get to get people to the place they need to go? How long are you going to wait for a VIA? Is it going to be 30 minutes? If we have a reliable mode of transportation, we can encourage people to forget their cars, to lose their cars and start taking the bus to work. I have a coworker who just simply takes the bus to work, and I think if we can increase our transportation, that would be a game changer. Even for the master plan, we need to start looking at that. So again, a city-run bus line is something that I'm advocating for. I think it's something that can really work. VIA, it's not scalable, and I don't think it does enough for residents.
Now I can't play music, Patrick, so I'm gonna have to just say your time is up. You really don't want me singing on this call, so thank you for that. No problem. Okay, Mo, you're going to ask the next question.
Great. Good evening. My question is on the role of police and social services. So the racist treatment of people of color by the police has sparked national and local outrage and a discussion about the role of police in modern society. What do you see as the role of police in modern day society? How would you address calls to reallocate funding from the police to go towards social services? And what can the city council do to address race relations and the police force? And I'm starting with Rafael Torres, and we're going to go in alphabetical order.
Thank you, Mo, and hi. I'm glad you're safe. First, I want to remember a few of the people, not just George Floyd or Arbery or Till or Gardner Rice or Castile. I do like what the Black Lives Matter has been doing to getting this on the forefront of reality. Of course, I support the Black Lives Matter movement, but I feel that the defunding police is a word limited to a small part of public safety today. As a retired firefighter, I was the first responder looking out into a field that has been revealed through Black Lives Matter activists. Together with police and EMS, we are the first persons you see. In an instant, it's over, or worse yet, escalated into something that was hidden to everyone responding to the scene. At the time, I would explain that I like to see happen for the Black Lives Movement and the concerns we have seen in the Heights. I would like to explain the need to start a budgeting point to provide support for public safety needs. First, communication. This will be funded through one-time use of public safety accounts that have accumulated fees from tickets and fire prevention fines, which could help us fund education process for the police. We do not have to defund the police. We just have to reallocate funding to get the job done. This one-time use would then be used to create a control and provide secure all data created for the first responder.
So I believe then Cynthia would be,
No.
or no, Patrick would be next. Nope,
Patrick.
Patrick.
It's Patrick, right? All right. So look, I think I've been pretty open about the whole Civilian Complaint Review Board, and I do support that. In terms of our role, the role of police in our society, I support the Quality of Life Task Force that Mayor Fulop established, which took all the inspectors, cross-trained them to answer complaints of noise, to answer the little complaints that you would usually call a cop for. And I think that there's a better way of using their time and resources. One thing that I think we need to address when it comes to cops is the de-escalation training, but also we want to make sure that we're getting our fair share of municipal services. At the end of the day, most of the North District police officers are being dispatched to other areas in the Heights. When we look at property taxes and homeowners, at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're getting our fair share, and we want to make sure that the police officers are here. But we also want to make sure that they're addressing real issues. And so that's why I support the Quality of Life Task Force, and that's something that I do give props to Mayor Fulop for. Thank you.
Now it's Cynthia.
Thanks. Yes. So I think the episode of violence we had over the past week in the Heights was really kind of a good opportunity for people to think about how they do feel about the police, because a lot of people are calling for defunding the police or reallocating resources, but then when they feel like there's the threat of gang violence in the Heights, I heard a lot of people calling for some kind of increased police presence. So I think there's kind of a polarized, or people are very polarized on the issue. From my perspective, I think it's not just about racism. It's about building trust between the police and the community. And that's in every ward in Jersey City, systemically, not just in our ward or the Northern District or the Southern District. And how do you do that? I mean, it's not just a one-time thing. I think there has to be like a consistent plan for policemen to connect with the community. Somebody mentioned, I had a meet and greet yesterday, and somebody mentioned to me, well, what happened to the police athletic league? My son used to play football. He got scholarships through that. What happened to that? So I think programs like that help to build those relationships. I think training would help the police to connect better with people in the community. But then sometimes it's a personality thing. Not every person or not every policeman has the personality where they're out there, where they're friendly. So I think picking the right people to begin with is a big part of that. Thank you.
Yusuf? Councilman Saleh, you're next.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mo. Well, this discussion has crescendoed over the last few months, and I feel my personal feelings on this is that the police, and I feel like others would agree with me, is that the police are a catch-all for every problem and every situation that you deal with, whether it's someone getting a wrong order at the Taco Bell and then it escalates, so you have to call the police, or situations that we've seen over the last 2 weeks here in the Heights with the shootings. They are a hammer when sometimes you need to use a scalpel, or sometimes you need to use another delicate hand to deal with the situation. When it comes to police, I feel as though we need transparency, we need accountability, but we also need to empower them to do their job when situations like over the past few weeks happens. So I've been on the ad hoc committee to review police procedures, and we want to bring that. We want to bring de-escalation training. We want to make sure that there's community involvement, that we are empowering community groups to be violence interrupters. We're empowering the community groups to have a seat at the table when it comes to these delicate and critical conversations about what role the police serve in our community. And I can tell you there's a number of instances where, we didn't need police. So you go to the Western Slope, there were a number of Airbnbs that were used as network of drug houses, and we worked with the community, and we spoke to the landlord, and we made sure that they were able to stop using the Airbnb for drugs and rent it out to a family or sell the house. But sometimes landlords aren't aware. So that's the kind of community involvement we need. And when things escalate to, an unreasonable amount, then that's when the police should be called.
Jocelyn, do you want me to take the next question, or is Pankaj?
Did Rafael answer the question?
Yes, he was first.
Okay, all right. See, I got lost. That's why I put it on the paper for you guys, because I knew I was going to get lost. Okay, all right then, Pankaj.
Yes. Utilization.
Okay.
My name is Pankaj G. Kapadia from Height Community Coalition. I would like to thank all of you for coming forward to the community and giving out the vision what you have planned for the community. Question is utilization of Heights officers. Heights police officers are continually dispatched to other area of town. What is your solution for that? How do we restore our Heights services? Question goes to the Patrick.
Thank you, Pankaj. It's great to see you. I want to start off by saying that from the beginning, when I launched my campaign, one of the first things I talked about was fighting for our fair share. And it's been an issue even when Councilman Yoon was councilman, the fact that our North District police get placed elsewhere. And at the end of the day, we're still paying our taxes to make sure that the North District police have officers on staff. It's something that it's a big issue, and we want to make sure that we address it. We want to make sure that everyone that's supposed to be working in the North District works in the North District. So that's where I stand on that. I also just want to say that, I know that we have almost a little over 900 police officers. I'm not necessarily in favor of increasing the police force, but we need to use them wisely, and we need to structure it so that we make sure that every ward is getting their fair share. So that's where I stand on that issue. But I also want to say that, look, at the end of the day, the city council had a budget, and Councilman Saleh voted to abstain from it. I think it's something where if we're talking about what's going on in policing here in the Heights, it should have been something that should have been vocal at the time. We need to make sure that we get our fair share of police. We need to make sure that the police force is doing what they're supposed to do, that we have our civilian complaint review board. I just want to leave it at that, and thank you.
Do I get to respond to that, or?
Okay, hold on. All right, hold on. I know we talked about rules. I don't necessarily think that was an attack. That was just a statement. You do have time to answer the question. So if you feel you need to respond to that, just keep it extremely short, but I would not classify that as breaking the rule that we discussed earlier. I think Cynthia is next.
What I'm going to say is the individual that just spoke called during that city council meeting and wanted to defund the police. So that's all I'm going to say. Thank you.
Okay, let's leave it at that. And Cynthia?
I think that was an attack that I do need to address.
Okay, stop.
I can address it another time.
Right. Stop. Both of you, stop. Thank you. Cynthia, you're next. I'm going to unmute you.
Okay, thank you. So, I know people say that our officers are being deployed to other districts. I'd need more information about that. I don't really know what they're like. How many are we talking about? What times of day are we talking about? Is it decreasing the level of service that we're receiving here in the Heights? I know if you look at the statistics that are available, certain districts, police districts in the city, have double the amount of violent crime, and I think they may need more coverage there. I don't look at this as a zero-sum game, like, increased services in one place hurt us in another place. I want the whole city to do better as a whole. So I would just like to know more about, I'd like more information about how they are deploying people. And this goes back to transparency. I'd like to know, what are they doing for crime prevention in each district? And I'd like to, with this little episode of violence we've had, the city spokesperson, the de facto spokesperson, was our council person, Yusuf Saleh, which I found to be really strange. I mean, I don't feel like my way of finding out about what's happening with the police department should be through social media from someone who's not in law enforcement. I wanted to see a public information officer or press conference with the mayor and the chief of police. I didn't get that. So I don't even have real information to help me decide what I think about police officer deployment throughout the city. And they got the guy also, so it would indicate that we have enough people here.
I guess it's
No,
my turn
no, hold
on
on.
this question.
Councilman Saleh is next alphabetically. That's okay.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you.
Councilman.
For those watching at home, essentially the way the police are allocated throughout the city is on a city-wide scale. So we have a certain number allocated, let's say 4 units, and there's 2 people per unit in each car. And there's an issue happening on the south side or the west side, and they need units, then officers from the North District will have to respond. So what we see is that obviously there's a lot of responses needed on the south side and the west side. And this is where my relationship with the mayor will assist in making sure that we do get those allocated. I hear a feedback loop.
Okay. Hold on. You still have more time. That was just hit the wrong ticker. Yusuf?
Hello?
You still have more time.
Yes. Okay. Can you mute yourself, Jocelyn? Sorry, I'm hearing your... Okay. Thank you. So when there's an issue on the south side, the North District has to respond. And the incidents that happened over the last week or 2, essentially there was a DV call and then there was another call. So 2 of our units were occupied. What I would suggest is to do reforms within the police department. If we look at Newark, we can see that some of the motor vehicle accidents that are done there that have no injuries, no damage, can be done online through a state website. And essentially when an officer goes out there, I've spoken with the Captain Santiago, and that eats up a lot of time. And we do have a community relations officer, Matt Ramos, and we got tied up with COVID-19. But Captain Santiago has visited these groups, these neighborhood groups, to discuss critical safety issues. So I am working with him, and I'm working with the mayor to ensure that we get
don't
the
make me start
resources
singing now.
necessary for the community. Sorry, there's a lot of feedback. All right, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, I'm getting a lot of feedback actually from you that I wasn't getting during the rehearsal. There's a high-pitched squeaking noise that seems to come on only when you're speaking, as if it's coming from the background someplace. And I've noticed, I don't know whether there's a fan or something, but there's some high-pitched noise that's behind you. So
Smoke detector.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a smoke detector. Yeah, it's
Fire
some kind of a
prevention week is coming. Change the battery.
it's some kind of beeping noise or something that's behind you, just so you know, Yusuf.
Can we get
Okay,
Raphael to my house?
next person is
Will
Rafael.
do. That should be me. I want to talk also about this, and I had spoke a little bit about this in the last question, and that is being a firefighter for over 27 years. I work hand in hand with the police. Public safety is not a joke. Public safety could change very fast, so it's important. What I was talking about. I also I was talking about ComStat, and I was trying to get to ComStat. ComStat was used. It's very important that we get that back. I think that would help us put the police where they need it. I believe having 1,000 now, I believe 1,000 officers, it's a great lot of people that could do this job. I always see the cops. I never have a problem with the police. The WhatsApp, things like that have been a help to the community and getting the police to respond. Now, I'd like to look into the police standard operation procedures, and maybe we could tweak a little bit of something, and I could supplement some of the things that police already have done. I know firefighters, we have standard operation procedures, and all we do is read them all day. Since we were sitting around the firehouse, that's what we did. So another thing we used to have was drug intervention and family intervention, and a family program that was for officers and firefighters. And since that program broke up a long time ago, they are being utilized in different areas. I like to see a little bit of that, and meeting with the public safety officers to discuss procedures to make these programs work. They already work. We just need to tweak a little bit of something. Like I said, funding could come from other resources, and I'm good at public-private resourcing to get that done. Thank you.
Okay, so is that the last person for this question? I think you are. Yes, everybody's answered this question. Okay. I know that our ASL person, like most of us, probably needs a couple of minutes for break just to stretch. We're going to take I would say we're going to take a 4-minute break, not 5, because it's been a long night and we still have a few more questions left. So we'll be back on, we're going to leave the screen open. We'll be back in about 4 minutes. Okay, so take a break, stretch your legs, just to get some water, and I'll see if I can figure where the beeping is coming from. We'll be back in 4 minutes. Thank you all for watching. We're not going anywhere. We're just taking a quick break so people can stretch. It's been kind of a long run here. Okay, we'll be back live in about 45 seconds.
Is the background noise still going on?
Oh,
my
yeah.
end?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not sure what it is, but it's definitely going on yours, because when everybody else is muted, I don't hear it until you unmute. So, okay, everyone, we are back. Thank you so much for, I think we all needed a little break just to stretch. And now we will go into our last group of questions. Nick, you're up.
Hi, everybody. Thank you to all the candidates for joining us tonight. My name is Nick Lawrence. I'm the president of the Washington Park Association of Hudson County, one of the neighborhood groups supporting this forum this evening. Also, by day, I'm a school administrator in the Bronx in New York. So my question has to do with school funding and on the role of the city council in funding our schools. Our schools faced a budget crisis prior to the pandemic, and I think that one issue that has been prevalent in that conversation is abatements. So the way we have funded abatements has impacted our public schools in Jersey City. What do you think the role of city council should be in this going forward? We're going to start with Cynthia. And Cynthia, you're muted, I think.
Okay, thank you. So I think we have to have a commitment to funding public education. There's no real way around that. The conversation that, you know, as I was following it, was that the city was kind of accusing the Board of Ed of not doing enough to economize and cut their budget. And the Board of Ed was sort of responding with letters saying, we'd like to see an audit of the tax abatements. You've talked about it, but you've never done it. I'm kind of on the side of the Board of Ed here. I would like to see an audit of the tax abatements. I think it should be an external audit. There was one building, Aqua Blue, that was audited and they found millions of dollars. And this was when Fulop first became mayor. And then everybody said, okay, let's audit the rest of them. And then that never happened. So I think now's a good time to do it. And this idea where the city's position, which is that the Board of Ed, they're not doing enough to cut their budget. Our school system's underfunded to the tune of $100 million. I don't think that's realistic. We need to have adequate funding. The city formed an audit team to look at abatements. I don't think an internal audit makes sense. I'd like to see external auditors. When I found out who two of the three team members were, I have no confidence that they'll do a good job on it. You know, I won't get into the details of that, but you can find out more if you want to message me privately. Thanks.
Rafael, you're going to be next.
Thank you. Okay. The shortfall for Board of Education is $150 million due to COVID-19. The mayor certainly came up with a plan. I supported this temporary plan to go ahead and appoint members to the Board of Education, and that didn't go well. Of course, as you remember, I believe appointing members to the Board of Education board could help to alleviate this by putting specialized people in those positions. Running for the position is great, but it hasn't done well, and that was part of the problem that the mayor had. Also, Councilman Michael Young wanted to see the public support plan for the Board of Education. He wanted to see the funding temporarily taken out of the Board of Education, and so they could run it the way the city wanted to run it, just for COVID-19. But that didn't go well either. So I believe going back to the drawing board will be the utmost priority for me. I really don't know what's going on with them. All I know is that we need to help them. So what I want to do is concentrate on the Heights. I want to go to each of the schools that we have to see what they really need. And hopefully I can work with the Board of Education. I also would like to get some kind of funding from the county and state, just temporary, maybe more grants or funding, just to get us through that $150 million budget shortfall. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Yusuf, we'll have you next. Sorry about the going out of order.
No worries. So for 30 years, the school board system here in Jersey City was essentially under state control. And last 2 years ago, we got out from under state control. And what does state control mean? Essentially, every year they had to approve, the state had to look over the budget and they had to approve it. And after we were left to our own devices, the state pulled hundreds of millions of dollars worth of funding. Not all at once, but definitely incrementally in large sums where we felt it. And where the city council has power, it's very limited when it comes to the school board. But what we can do as a city is that we coordinate with the Board of Education on revenue streams and also on tax increases. Because as you saw this year, there was a tax increase for the Board of Education. And we as the city have to make sure that we're sensitive to that we aren't raising taxes at the same time they're raising taxes. And those tax increases are the result of decades of underfunding on our part as a city. So our priorities were not straight, but we were allowed to do that because the state said it was okay and they gave us the money, but the gravy train is over. And we have to make sure that we're funding our school system properly and that we are working with the Board of Education on that. We've instituted the payroll tax. We have upcoming referendum on marijuana. Which, if you saw in Colorado, that has allowed for a budget surplus for their school system. So and we also have ads that we now put on trash cans that we're looking at alternative revenue sources for the city so that we can give to the school board, and we just have to make sure we're properly funding them.
Thank you, Patrick. You're up next.
Thank you. So as a product of PS28 and County Prep High School, I understand the importance that our education system plays in the lives of our kids and now of parents. During the last 30 years, the city of Jersey City has given out hundreds of tax abatements, which has allowed large developments from paying their fair share in school taxes. And so a few years ago, Mayor Fulop actually passed an executive order that stopped that practice. I fully support it. However, now I think that the city council needs to vote to make sure that that's a permanent fixture in our municipal code. It can't just be one day a new mayor comes in and wants to make sure that we underfund our school. I want to make sure that we create a revenue stream through the legalization of marijuana for our schools, but we also want to make sure that we're not essence double taxing residents because we already pay our school tax. Now, this year alone, the school tax was raised by 47% in its totality, but it's also our water has gone up. So we want to make sure that we are being sensitive to that and that we're not increasing taxes as the school board's increasing taxes. And so we have to work together and coordinate as a council body and as a school board body. Thank you.
I think that was everyone. Thanks.
Oops, sorry. That was everyone? Okay. All right. Thank you, Nick. Okay. I'm going to let you stay because you're asking a question after Brian. Okay. And Brian, your next question.
Thank you, Jocelyn. And good evening, candidates again. The next question we'll be discussing is housing affordability and what City Council can do to increase affordability in the Heights. Two things that City Council has been talking about recently: inclusionary zoning and rent control. So the first part of the question is, do you support inclusionary zoning? And between the three ordinances that now Council has debated, Councilman Lavarro and Councilman Waterman's, the mayor administrations, and now the mayor administrations and Joyce Waterman's ordinance, what ordinance do you prefer and why? And do you support amending rent control? And specifically, what provisions? And if you do, would you consider expanding rent control to apply to buildings with less than 4 units? Thank you very much. And we'll start with Councilman Saleh.
Thank you so much. And the last few months, I've been on the Inclusionary Zoning Committee, and I've been one of the most progressive and staunchest advocates for the creation of affordable housing here in the Heights and Jersey City wide. And we were looking at the Joyce Waterman and Rolando Lavarro proposal, which I had supported. And there's a new proposal that came forward that I'm still in the process of reviewing. But I will tell you my position on this is very clear, that I do not support corporate buyouts or concrete, essentially community benefits where they have they build a playground, because that playground is only going to benefit the new development that comes forward. I want affordable housing that is lifetime, 99 years. I tried to compromise, if anyone watched this committee, to 65. But we are now in the process of making sure that it's within the Uniform Housing Affordability Code controls, and that it is the strongest possible affordable housing inclusionary zoning ordinance. And I've met with community leaders, I've met with the RNA, I've met with many folks who I've seen my friends have to leave the community because of the gentrification and the unaffordability. We have to increase the supply within our neighborhood in order for rents to come down, in order for us to be able to, make sure that there's housing for everyone.
Mr. Torres?
Thank you. Yes, these are policies that it seems to be going over the desk of people who are working there. I just want to say, as a council person, I will be working full time to make sure that I look at these things in order to make an educated decision on doing what's right, just for the Heights. Because when it comes to affordable housing, it's a little tough when you have one and two family houses, and everybody buying these $1 million houses that they're building when they just knock down these old ones. So I do want to talk about the historic value of of houses to the people who can't afford it. These people who own these houses also need help. But the Bayfront area being developed has had a great approach to getting affordable housing for our people. I know it's not in the Heights, but man, getting them on a list and they getting property even over there, overlooking the Hackensack River, that's going to be not a hard thing to sell. The abatements are helping all of us when it comes to affordable housing. And let's not forget the construction of new construction. We still give 23% for affordable housing. And I think all of these things work very well so far to the position where we are now. Now, COVID-19 has different problems. We need to supplement anything that the state is doing and federal on getting these people relief now before June. After June, we could talk about some of these Bayfront projects and other projects. I really do think that these 1 and 2 family homes has a different way of controlling the taxes here in the Heights. And that's what I mean. I need to see more of the money, more of the numbers, so we could get more out of it for affordable housing. And that would be a priority for me.
Patrick?
So I 100% support inclusionary zoning. It's something that I've been following very closely. One thing that we want to make sure when it comes to inclusionary zoning is that it's for 30 to 50 or 30 to 60% AMI, so that we're really helping the low income residents, so that we're really helping our senior population. These are the people that really need our help during this time. In terms of buyouts, I want to make sure that we actually don't look to do buyouts in terms of building parks, because at the end of the day, what that ends up being is it ends up costing the city more money, and they end up mismanaging our park system. So we want to make sure that they're buyouts that, if anything, has to go towards infrastructure, towards public transportation, towards beautification of the community. But I really want to make sure that we're strong and that we build an affordable and inclusionary zoning that builds affordable housing throughout Jersey City. So again, that also means making sure that we pass in its requirements units that would confide here in Ward D. Because one thing I would hate is passing inclusionary zoning ordinance and then almost no properties in the Heights. I've seen a lot of my friends actually leave because of that and go to other affordable units throughout the city. In terms of rent control, I fully support rent control. And I want to make sure that we add requirements so that it's added into their lease, either from the homeowner or the management company, that they add into the renter's lease that they are in a rent control unit, what that means, and the resources that City Hall can provide for that. Thank you.
Cynthia.
Okay, I mean, that's a lot of material to cover in 90 seconds, Brian, but I'm going to try. So I'm not sure what each version of each ordinance is. I was following it up until I think the last meeting, but I support inclusionary zoning also, but I want to make sure we get a version of an inclusionary zoning ordinance that really does help the people who need it most. Where I left off, it seemed like it was just going to help. It was that people could get out of the requirement by building what was essentially market rate housing. There were also a lot of loopholes, potentially. I'm not in favor of those loopholes. And I do, if what Councilman Saleh said is correct and the threshold has gone down to 65% AMI, that seems like that's a step in the right directions. I think, though, this has just been going around and around and around in the city. And what I've seen with this, I don't know why it's taking a year. We can't even have one more project approved without inclusionary zoning. So I want this done fast, do it right, and do it faster. And when there is the political will to do something within the administration, it happens very, very quickly. So what I'm getting the sense that they're contented to let it languish in the council, and there isn't the political will to get this done. If I get on the council, I want to make sure it actually happens and we actually have a good ordinance. Rent control, I think there are economies of scale associated with that. It might not work for people with less than 4 units.
And okay, has everyone had a chance to answer the question? And where did Rafael go? Did we just lose Rafael?
He was having issues hearing, I believe, so maybe he's logging back in.
Okay, did he have a chance? Did everyone have a chance to answer the last question? I'm kind of going back and forth. I want to make sure everybody got a chance to answer that question. Okay, so Brian, you're gonna say thank you, and I'm gonna bring Nick back in.
Thank you, everyone, and great job.
Okay, so.
Can we give?
Okay, let's give Rafael a second. We're coming up on 9 o'clock. Now, I will be honest with you, timing never works the way you want it to. Because I did the math and it was exactly this, but people talk longer, people talk shorter. We have basically 1, 2, 3. We have 4 more questions, and then we would have a wrap up. I'm perfectly fine with continuing. I will let the candidates decide because the original conversation was from 7:30 to 9. We've got a pretty good audience. I think it's going well. I don't think anybody's going to hold it against you if you go, it's 9 o'clock and I want to wrap this up, but I want to put that out there. And I'd like, if you don't have to, you can tell me in chat. You don't have to say it publicly if you don't want to. But like I said, we have 4 questions left. You guys know what the topics are because we did give you the topics, but not the questions. We're unfortunately not going to be able to take any questions from the audience because then I think we would be here half the evening. So, but I would like to at least get through those 4 questions and then do your 2-minute summary. If you guys are agreeable to that, like I said, put it in the chat and let me know while we're waiting for Rafael, because I don't really want to continue without him. He's been an integral part of this up until now. So hopefully he can get his internet connection working so that he can come back and join us. Oh, there he is. Okay. Hi there. Hi there. I was just talking about you. Were your ears burning? No. Okay, hold on. Unmute yourself. Unmute yourself.
The fire alarm at my house.
Okay, hold on. Unmute yourself. Okay. Hold on. Wait a minute. You're still muted. Wait a minute. Unmute yourself. There, stop. Okay,
Yes,
now.
I said to Councilman, I did call 911. You're right.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, I don't know if you heard because I know you were having some issues. We have 4 questions left,
Yes,
and
I
then
heard
there's the 2-minute summary. So it sounds like everybody's okay with that. I think the people that are watching would be fine with that. So let's continue. I thank you guys very much. I think this is definitely very informative. I think people are enjoying it. We're holding our audience pretty well, so I think that's a good thing. So the next question is going to be from Nick Lawrence. What happened, Nick? You were there and now you're gone. What happened to the screen? I'm going to put you back. There you are. Okay. All right, Nick. Next question and next person up.
All right. So I know that you all spoke to some degree to the city budget and raising funds when we talked about funding our schools. This goes to alternative revenue sources for the city. So if the only way to raise revenue is through property taxes and municipal code enforcement, how do you plan to fund the government programs and critical infrastructure necessary to move our city forward during this unprecedented pandemic? And we're going to start with Rafael on that one.
Thank you. Funding and getting other resources, that's pretty much the job of a council person. Michael Young, I worked with him for over 1,000 hours, and I could just remember going over the numbers with him. It was not my favorite strength. I am not good at math, but I could add and multiply. But looking at the alternative resources, it's not something we talk about at those meetings. So I am eager to participate in the process and going over the budget prior to the council meetings. There's a lot of resources in housing. There's a lot of resources in low income. There's a lot of sustainable Jersey City resources that we've been working with, and all it has been doing is it's been taken away from a lot of other resources. The mayor has done a great job in not raising our taxes, so he's doing something right. And I have worked with talking with some of the lawyers. They're really good around them. And what we need to do is look into other ways. When it comes to COVID-19, we got to get more from the governor, and we have to get more from the county. I really believe that these are the ways that we could get some kind of relief to help us in the alternative of taxes, and as what you had said, that was that Nick? Yes, Nick. I'm sorry. So basically, I like to see a little bit more of that. I want to participate in that process full time, and I really think that I could find different ways of doing these things. Thank you.
Thank you. The next up is going to be Patrick.
Great. So in terms of alternate revenue sources, we want to make sure that one thing that COVID-19 has taught us It's the fact that people can work from home and are working from home. I think a large portion of the population that works in the public sector and other sectors are working from home. And so we want to make sure that government kind of advances a little bit. And if employees can work from home, we should have them work from home. It'll save us on rent. It'll save us on electricity, save us on heating. We'll be able to use that money towards other projects. I think another thing that we have to advocate for is at the end of the day, Port Authority, they collect their share of fare rides for us. And we want to make sure that we get the allotted funds that they raise to infrastructure projects here in Jersey City. I also want to make sure that we pass a special tax for events that are out of town, something like the PGAs that were held last year, so that we're able to bring in some extra revenue. At the end of the day, Ralph stated that Mayor Fulop has done a good job with keeping taxes stable, but he's raised the cost of getting a permit. He's looking to raise the meters. He's looking to raise the cost of hosting events. So at the end of the day, they haven't really been stable. We've seen the cost go up in other things. So, we want to make sure that we're being fair to residents. And I think a great way to go about it is having employees work from home. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Cynthia.
So I'm not entirely sure I understand the question, but I guess the Office of Innovation is a good example of something that was started through a grant that came from Bloomberg, and maybe there is more philanthropic and corporate money out there. I mean, I worked really hard to get the city to apply for grant money for the reservoir. So as a result of those efforts, the city was awarded $2.2 million last fall, and it was a combination of state money and county money. But those are grants that the city always applies for Green Acres. It always applies to the county open space trust. But maybe I don't know, call Mark Zuckerberg or David Tepper or whatever, see if they have an extra $100 million hanging around. We have the payroll tax, and I think that was the tool given to us to fund the school system. I think we have to stick with that until we come up with some better way of making our budget whole. And then I think the city's been using Suez as a way to generate extra revenue. So they've increased our water bills, and then that surplus that Suez generates gets transferred over to the city's operating budget. I'm against that. I think that's kind of a hidden tax. Again, I'm in favor of transparency. I don't think we should be trying to cook the books like that. So I guess that's my answer.
Thanks very much. Yusuf, you are the last one on this question. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And as we traverse through this unprecedented time in our country's history, it's absolutely critical that we keep the transmission rate of this virus below 1% or one person, below one person. So if the transmission rate keeps creeping up, then businesses will have to shut down. Then you lose your rateable base. And if you try and raise taxes, essentially you're putting more stress on homeowners who will trickle that down to tenants. So you're risking foreclosure at that point, and you're risking a tenant that will be unable to pay for that. We can do municipal bonding, although I would be highly critical of it, and we'd have to look at it. The marijuana referendum does offer some relief. It would be taxed at 2% as the law currently stands, like each transaction. So that could offer an alternative revenue source. And like I said, signs on those new trash cans, that passed through the New Jersey State Legislature, which allowed us to put those advertisements. And we have to look to the federal government as well, because we need a second round of stimulus. They are the last resort, and they should be, giving the municipalities and the localities and the state more funding. So whoever wins this election, you should be on the lookout for a second round of stimulus for the states and the municipalities. So that's one way we need to get through this. The government needs to step in during this time in order to fund, the gap, or fund the gap in resources and spending.
Thanks very much, everyone.
All right, thank you so much, Nick. Okay, we're going to Caroline. Can you see us? Okay, hi, Caroline. I'm going to unmute you. Okay, Caroline, unmute yourself. Caroline's been having some internet issues, so I'm not sure. And so unfortunately, that's nothing that we can really do anything about. Caroline, Caroline, are you there?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
Okay, great. You want to ask your question?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes. It sounds like you can't hear me.
Yes? Okay.
Yeah.
No, I
yes,
can.
I can hear you. Okay, I can hear you.
Okay. Okay, sorry. I'm Caroline, and I'm Vice President of Pershing Field Neighborhood Association. And these are the two questions from the association. The first is about the budget, which we've been speaking about for the last few questions. And so clearly the council plays a large role in the budget. And the question is what your priorities would be in terms of what areas you want to include or in the budget, or what you want to change, and what you think the best way is to use the resources that the city has in the budget. And then along with, as a separate question, very important and related, how would you engage your constituents into the budget process, the process of passing the budget? And we begin, I believe, with Mr. Torres. Rafael
Okay,
Torres.
I'm gonna ask if you guys actually heard that question, because she was breaking up a bit. If you feel like you need me to reread it to you, I can. So, okay.
Please.
All right. So
Yes,
the question is, the council plays a large role in the city's budget. What are your priorities, and what do you think is the best way to use the resources we have, and how would you engage your constituents in the process? So we'll start with Patrick on that one.
Hey, great. So first off, I think in terms of budgeting, we want to make sure, especially now during a midst of a global pandemic, that we are giving our resources to Health and Human Services so that they're able to do their contract tracking, their test sites, so that they're able to make sure that they're fully staffed. I think another important aspect of the budget is making sure that we're funding social services throughout our community. So whether that's mental health services, wellness services, it's definitely something that we need to start doing, regardless of what's going on in with COVID-19. But I also want to make sure that we're using our money appropriately and that we're managing it correctly. I can tell you, for one, during the midst of a pandemic, I'm not sure I would have voted for $200,000 worth of office furniture for my council office. That's not something that I would do. One thing I would do is vote for a cap on property taxes for our homeowners to give them some homeowner relief. Those are things that I think we need to really tackle. But in terms of involving the community, again, as your councilman, I definitely plan on having an office on Central Avenue so that the community members can come in, we can meet, we can talk, we can have community meetings on agenda items that are going on, and anything that you guys have that's pressing. So I definitely look forward to having that. And thank you so much.
Cynthia, you're next.
Yeah. So when Michael Youn first got elected, I think one of the first things he was doing was trying to study the budget, because budget hearings were coming up, and he was given these huge two gigantic binders, and he gave me a set of binders so I could help him study it. And I was surprised to find out how much of the budget is really fixed costs. So 20% is police, 20% is fire, 20% is debt service, and then I think 20% is our contribution to the school system. So we just have this little piece of the pie left that we can work with, because 80% is fixed cost, and that little slice of the pie is mostly goes to the administration. And then the things that looked like they were sort of changing all the time was payroll. So that's the one area where you could look at it like who's been getting a lot of raises, like are these in line with what government employees with this type of job normally get. I think that's something to look at. And how to engage constituents on the budget. We used to have this user-friendly budget that was available on the city website. I went on and tried to look at it for this year's budget to prepare for the budget hearings this year. They didn't have the user-friendly document. So I think things like that, nobody's going to go through two huge, 3-inch or 4-inch binders of materials to study the budget. It has to be made digestible for people, and only then can they feel empowered to participate. But I would want to empower people to participate as much as possible.
Thank you, Cynthia. Next. Youssef, you're next.
Thank you so much. My priorities for Ward D, as I see them, are funding for litter patrols throughout the Heights, and we're looking to remove the street sweepers from doing it twice a week on each side. So that's 4 times a week to once a week. And then we want to supplement that with litter patrols. And I think that this city, especially Ward D, we need a big investment in quality of life. I get it all the time. It's the most common complaint. It's the trash in the streets. So I have requested for more trash cans and smart trash cans where people can't throw their household trash in there or the business trash, because you have the wide open trash can opening and people like to throw their trash in there. And that's actually been a problem. I've requested that we redo the RFPs. Those are the requests for proposals. Instead of having one RFP where only one company can really bid, and that's regional, this is our trash company, I would like to break it out into 6 or 3 RFPs, so then we have smaller companies like the ones in Hoboken that can possibly do a better job when it comes to collecting our trash. I want to fund the library systems because they're the closest thing we have to community center. And during this pandemic, they've been giving internet access to people that don't have internet access. They've been reviewing resumes for people that are out of work. They've been giving out books. They help you print out pages that you need to print out. They're the closest thing we have to a community center. I'm looking at health and security as well. I went to Patterson and I looked at their contact tracing program and I spoke with their mayor. So we're looking to implement a lot of these things here in Jersey City Heights. And it takes a village, and we're looking at everyone else and how they're doing things and how we could do them better.
All right, thank you. Rafael? Rafael, you're next.
Yes, of course. Finding ways to get into the budget, that's going to be a little hard to do. But I also agree with the councilman. So that is actually my priority, is to tackle the garbage problem. And how do we get that in the budget? How do we get it in everybody's budget? And that's important to talk about. So what I could suggest is right off the bat, right when I become a councilman, I already have the letters set, and I like to reach out with the tenants, because these tenants are well known. Problem areas are well known on where to go to, where the garbage is having a problem. And I already isolated these problems. So why not go for some way of getting into the taxes or into a program where we could pay for some of these receptacles and for some of these outside receptacles that we could put this garbage in. We have to help the tenants, or I should say we have to help the landlord or the owners of these houses get a little bit better at throwing out garbage. It's a 2-for-1 thing here too, that if we do that, if we actually get these receptacles to the problem areas, we could also eliminate the wildlife problem that we're having. And what I want to do is offer, if there's money, I want to offer a volunteer program where we could get these wildlife safely removed, the wild animals, and brought to areas that Pete described. We could maybe get 2 people and educate them to remove these animals, and then work with volunteers to get in these animals. Now, they are being attracted by these problems that we have with exposed garbage.
Thank you, Rafael. Okay, Carolyn, you have one more question. Hold on, unmute yourself. There you go. Unmute yourself. Nope, you're still muted. Let me try on this end.
Okay, now?
Okay, now I can hear you.
Okay, if elected, what will your priorities be, and what do you plan to accomplish during your tenure as council member? And I believe we start with Cynthia. Cynthia?
So thank you, Caroline. I would like to work on the inclusionary zoning ordinance. I think I already talked about how I think it's taking too long for the council to negotiate on some of these things. So I would want to jump right in and help them get to something that they're comfortable putting on the agenda and vote on it. I care a lot about the environment. I've spent 15 years working on the reservoir, and in general, I care a lot about green space. I care about sustainability. The city had started working on developing a climate action plan, and then it's on hold for now. I think that's also urgent. I would like to see the climate action plan put in place and then to begin implementing it. And I care a lot about community supported zoning and development. So I would really want to work with constituents to empower them to participate in the zoning and development process to the fullest extent possible. And that includes the master plan.
Thank you, Cynthia. Next.
You're muted.
Okay, thank you, Cynthia. Next would be Youssef.
My priorities, if elected again this November, and it's been an honor and pleasure to serve my community so far, would be quality of life, and it would be to get through the pandemic. First, the pandemic, because that is the most immediate threat to our lives and livelihood. And I've already gone through the first wave, as the councilman, and I've been seasoned and experienced, and I've committed to working with Stacey Flanagan, the health director, and working with Governor Murphy and other localities to utilize best practices. When it comes to quality of life, that is a persistent issue that I've seen ever since, I was born and raised in the Heights. And I would love to have the opportunity to change that and to make it clean, just as you see it in Hoboken, just as you see it in Union City. And that's why I've had the direct approach, giving my phone number, my personal number to constituents, because I want you to know that your councilman is here, that you can rely on me, and that when there's a quality of life issue, we're going to address it. I've been working with landlords, I've been working with residents, and I want to see more Little Patrol. I want to see the Heights clean. And I want people to be proud of the Heights more than they already are. And I want to use micro-targeting when it comes to the see, click, fix data. Like, let's say there's a street that has a persistent dog poop problem. I will utilize that data and see where persistent areas are and put like a doggy bag and maybe some signage. And if there's a persistent area where there's trash, I'll micro-target that area for a trash can. So that's how I would utilize in order to solve these problems.
All right. Thank you, Youssef. Rafael, you're next.
Thank you. So I'd like to first suggest that my priority would be Leonard Gordon Park. And in doing so, I want to come up with a solution. The park's master plan has been a productive debate here in the Heights. At Lennon Gordon Park, it would seem that the organization is following through on a master plan, which stalled. We have two nonprofits at Lennon Gordon Park who have been at odds over the development. So, in the case of Mosquito Park, I like to take transparent process that was introduced by the city's architect, NV5, who resolved years of neglect and vandalization and came up with a great plan. I have been a volunteer at this park for over 30 years and have been in between these disputes since the master plan was agreed upon. I was waiting for phase 1, but instead I saw our money go to Ward C and the Reservoir 3. Recently, I participated at their meeting to talk about the $2 million now advocated to help the reservoir. I just had a problem to see that despite the needs of the reservoir, we still have the lack of basic promises that have not developed at our protected parks. I have advocated for Liberty State Park, and that's a great example of how hard it is to maintain, let alone keep an open and free space. Even in COVID-19, it's much more important than any time ever. It's much more important now. So with that, Mosquito Park is a priority, and what I want to do is see an end to it and make sure we get the handicap pathways there and at the reservoir as a priority.
All right, thank you, Rafael. And I think we started with Cynthia, so Patrick is next.
Thank you. I first want to address Rafael's comments. The Leonard Gordon Park Conservancy has actually worked with the city to make sure that residents are aware of the master plan process. And actually in November, Councilman Yuta and I were able to secure $500,000 to go towards phase 1 of the master plan, which involves improving the walkways, which would do the handicap walkways, improving the lighting and adding new lighting fixtures, as well as increasing public safety. So that's well in the works, and we'll probably look at 2021 for to finally put a shovel in the ground. But look, my priorities are priorities that I think everyone should have. It's quality of life, and it's really focusing on right now the inclusionary zoning. I think it's something that we really can't go to step 2 and 3 without making sure that we're creating affordable housing for people. In terms of quality of life, I want to make sure that Central Avenue is the beacon for the Heights. I want to make sure that our streets are clean. I want to make sure we create a marketing plan for how Central Avenue should look in the next 5 to 10 years. Make sure that we're opening the doors and marketing Central Avenue for new diverse businesses. Right now, you go on Central Avenue, there's a lot of storefronts that are closed. It's littered. We want to make sure that we address those issues. Another issue that I think is important, we are going to need to focus on the 2020 open space master plan, which is something that in 2008, when it was done, Riverview Park, that was a year 1 park, is only getting done now in 2020. So we want to make sure that we're being realistic with the funding sources and how much a project's going to cost, and that we line up the first ones that we're going to be able to get done and do it systematically instead of waiting 10 years to get a park done. So those are issues that are near and dear to my heart. I've been an advocate for open space for the last decade and a half, and I want to make sure that the reservoir, along with every other park in Jersey City, gets its fair share and make sure that we're doing it in a timely manner. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, we have 2 questions from the audience. Well, actually, 2 questions from the audience. Mo's going to give one, and then we'll have one, and then we'll do the wrap up. I want to thank you guys so much for sticking with us. Obviously, there's lots of issues and lots of questions, and we wanted to give you guys ample time to be able to respond to the questions. So, and sometimes my finger hit the button soon and sometimes it didn't. So it kind of worked itself out, I think, in the long run. So Mo is going to ask the next question.
Sure. And I just wanted to take a moment briefly to thank Jocelyn, because I think she's doing an amazing job with this, and it's so much to be putting together and all this technology and everything. So just thank you so much for doing this. It's such a service for our community. The issue that I wanted to talk about, or to ask you all about, is climate change. So the Heights is being impacted by climate change and our outdated infrastructure. What is your plan for addressing the impacts of climate change in the Heights? And how would you ensure that the city addresses climate change and infrastructure upgrades in a way that's equitable. And
that one starts with Yusuf.
Thank you. And something that I've learned, since I became a councilman is I look at weather events differently. Now having had the experience, I know which areas of the Heights begin to flood. Bowers and Webster, the manholes start popping out. And if you go to South Street and Pierce, every time it rains, I hold my breath that a river doesn't fly down that street. And we need to make sure that we are building an environmentally sustainable Heights, that we're using permeable pavement, that we're using bios walls, that we are maybe possibly putting underground tanks to store water, that we're separating the sewage system from the water, the stormwater system. I've spoken at length with the director of the MUA, Joe Kunha, and it's going to take a large infrastructure amount to do that. It's about $100 million, and we are starting down on the western slope. So you see that we are removing the pipes. A lot of them are coiled, and they're so small. The pass through for the water is very restricted because they're over 100 years old. So we have to do it in a methodical fashion. We need whoever the next president is to put a large amount into infrastructure so that we can upgrade all of these systems, these antiquated systems. There is a whole world underneath our feet that we're not aware of. When we litter, when we put anything into our water system, that comes back to us. So we have to be cognizant of that as well. And we need an educational system for the residents to let them know that.
is that Patrick's next?
Great. So I think that the first thing we really need to do is look at our green infrastructure.
Patrick, I don't mean to cut you off, but actually Rafael is next.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
Rafael, you're next.
That's okay. I would have liked to listen to. Well, I got one answer for that, Mo, and I believe solar panels have to be important and a priority. Not PSC&G farming, what they put on the poles. That's for them. This Wednesday, I'm getting my own solar panels. I finally went through and I'm getting the solar panels put on my roof. And I think those are things that we can do. Little things we can do is to get these things for ourselves, for our peace of mind. Now, the city, that's true. The city has a lot of things. And since Hurricane Sandy and being a firefighter and I hold all the license for fire inspection and everything, I think we don't do enough for stockpiling. I was talking about that before. We have to stockpile 2 gallons of water for 1 day for each person in the family. So how do we do that? When I was with Michael Young, I did bring this up. It was probably the hardest thing to talk to a politician about. How do we stockpile? Because you do have to put these things in places. So COVID-19 has given us this opportunity to stockpile little by little. As we go to the store, we buy an extra thing. So I think these are things we could do to offset global warming. And of course, that's more of a state and bigger problem. And my opinion would be, I think we're going to be taking care of that problem on November 4th, after we get rid of a problem. And that is, it all trickles down. And so we have to start there also. So we need to vote. That's very important. We also have to find other ways in doing our part to save.
Don't make me start singing. Don't make me start singing, Rafael.
Okay, now it's Patrick's turn. Sorry about that before.
No problem. I actually wouldn't mind to hear you sing. But look, one of the first things that we're going to have to do is make sure that we pass a good green infrastructure ordinance that requires green infrastructure. What you'll see right now is homes being built that yes, they're supposed to require certain amount of a garden space and for the water to soak up. And what ends up happening is that after the building's done and the inspectors come and do their check, they simply put a slab over it, and then that becomes parking. We want to make sure that there's enforcement in that. We want to make sure that when we're redoing Central Avenue, that we add green infrastructure within that street and throughout all our parks. We also want to make sure that we update our infrastructure. And I know, just like Yusuf said, the infrastructure is going to cost a lot of money, but it's going to be an investment that, we're going to have to take. And so, whether that we get that money through, developers or through other means, we're going to have to do it. And it's going to be important. So one of the things, again, is green infrastructure. We really need to better that. And if there's programs where we can help homeowners switch to solar, just like Ralph did, I totally support that, and I would be a big advocate for that. Another thing is in our municipalities, we have to make sure that our city buildings are sustainable as well. We have to make sure that every initiative that we're doing, just like our transportation, is also sustainable. VIA right now runs on gas. We have to make sure if we're doing programming that we're doing it in a sustainable way. Thank you.
And Cynthia, you're up.
Sorry, okay. So I had mentioned that the city was working on a climate action plan. I don't have expertise in this area, so this is something where I would really I don't want to pretend that I can by myself solve the world's problems. This is a huge problem. And I want to rely on other people's expertise. So I'd like to see the city finish its climate action plan, and I'd like to learn more about how it's doing that. And then I'd like to support the implementation of that in a systemic way. I think the goal of a climate action plan is supposed to be to reduce greenhouse gases. I think some of what people have covered is how do we deal with the effects of climate change, which are problems with stormwater management, I guess problems with an infrastructure that can't handle things. I think we need to get at the root causes of climate change. That's greenhouse gases. I think the citywide or the plan to expand our composting program, that may help. And with recycling, I think it's like there are fewer and fewer things we're able to recycle now through the municipal recycling program. I'd like to try to expand that so that there are more options for municipal recycling. And I think the master plan is an opportunity to get more permeable ground. Right now, people are able to build on like almost every square foot of land, and we don't want that. That's what's causing some of these consequences, like the stormwater management problems. I think we need to kind of go back to maybe where we were and stop letting people occupy every square foot of their lot with building coverage or lot coverage.
All right, thank you guys. So it is 9:34, and I'm going to give you two choices. You can answer a question about parking, or you can do your summaries and we can all go to bed. That seems to be one of the questions that's coming up a lot in the audience. I think that we could probably do a combination of answering the question about parking and doing your summary so that you can kind of, talk about the elephant in the room for, let's say, 60 seconds, and then we'll add your 2 minutes on to do your summary. I want to thank you all. I'll be doing a little mini wrap up at the end, but I want to thank you all for your patience, for your insight, and so let's talk about the elephant in the room, which is the lovely parking. We're going to go back to alphabetical order since I'm doing the summaries at the same time. So Patrick, we're going to have you start first, parking, and then your 2-minute summary. Okay, unmute yourself.
What is the question in regards to parking? You're muted.
There you go. Sorry, that's okay. There you go. That seems to be the overriding question, is what are we going to do to improve the parking situation in the Heights? And then you can do your 2-minute summary.
Okay, so I think I addressed it a little bit before in the beginning. We want to make sure that we do something with the automatic curb cuts. Right now, when buildings are, when two-story family, when homes are being built throughout the Heights, a home gets demolished without parking, and a new home is set with a parking garage. And in the Western Slope, that has decreased off-street parking. It's something that many of the residents have complained about, and it's a quality of life issue. So first thing, we have to address that. We have to make sure that we review the applications one by one and assess what's going on that street. The other thing is we want to make sure we're being kind to residents, especially during this time. The fees are one of the things that I hear complaints about all the time, and we want to make sure that we're being reasonable with that. And so that's another thing that I want to look at in terms of parking, is making sure that, one, we lower the cost of the fees, but also make sure that we're actually enforcing the permit parking. That's another issue that many residents have found, is that they'll go into their street and they'll find cars that aren't permitted to be there, and there's no resources for them. So we want to make sure that we're addressing that.
Okay, and now your summary.
Okay, awesome. So my name is Patrick Ambrosi, and I'm running for Ward D City Council. As a lifelong resident of the Heights, I've watched our community change. I've seen as Central Avenue now faces a growing decline in businesses. I've seen as valued members of our community who I've grown up with are forced to leave due to the skyrocketing cost of living and lack of affordable housing. I believe that the Heights deserves better. I think that the Heights deserves a leader that has a proven track record of public service. I love my community and am committed to moving the Heights in the right direction. Over the last decade and a half, you and I have both worked together to beautify, advocate, and improve the lives of residents. I want to make sure that we continue doing that, and that we fight for our fair share of municipal services, that we create a city that is more affordable, sustainable, and equitable for all. It's time we say no to big developers and yes to the changes that are going to best suit our friends and neighbors. I hope in November and through the vote by mail, I have your vote. Let's continue working together, and let's create a better future for everyone here in Jersey City. Please be sure to vote 1L for Patrick Ambrosi.
It's funny, I keep muting myself. This is pretty funny. Thank you, Patrick. I appreciate that. Cynthia, we're going to give you about a minute for parking, and then you can start your summary after that.
Yeah, I mean, I think we had a question on parking.
We had a question on transportation, which is not the same as parking.
Okay, well, I think I addressed parking, but what I said was, I think there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for parking. I think it's going to be a patchwork of different things that are going to help increase space. Like, we can look at private parking. Maybe there are more. We should do a survey of private parking. We should possibly, try to evaluate, like, where are there opportunities for private parking, such as churches, schools at night. If we improve public transportation, then maybe people will be less reliant on their cars. I'm not totally convinced of that. I think if you are trying to go anywhere other than New York City, you probably need a car. I'd like to see appropriate densities, because I think that all this increase in density is increasing the cars that are being parked on the street. So I'd like to see appropriate densities for the Heights. And if there are higher density projects approved, I'd like to see enough parking so that that doesn't exacerbate the existing parking problem. And we are going to have more public parking with the parking deck that they're planning to do on Central Avenue, but we're going to lose a parking lot when they build the new precinct in the North District. And we might want to look at, like, where else can we create more public parking?
Okay, so now you have 2 minutes to do your summary.
Yeah, so actually I wanted to circle back and to a couple of the questions I felt I didn't have enough time to answer, or that I didn't adequately answer. And I did just want to say, somebody texted me during the debate and said, I don't know what you're doing, but you're not looking straight at the camera. And I wanted to just say to anybody else who noticed that, I am a compulsive note taker. It's the way I process information. It's really the way I think. So if I've been looking down, I apologize. It's because I'm taking notes, and it's very hard for me to stop taking notes. So sorry if anyone thinks I look distracted. But yeah, the question about budget priorities, obviously the pandemic has to continue to be the budget priority. People's health is our foremost priority. So I think we have to keep spending on testing. We have to keep spending on contact tracing. We have to keep spending on enforcement of regulations, COVID regulations, to make sure people are operating their businesses in a safe, compliant way. And then emergency management. But a pandemic is an emergency. And I think the first question was, what would you do, to help COVID? I think if we do have a second wave and we do have vulnerable populations that are having trouble with food access, or they're having trouble with housing, I think the city should prepare for that now and enter into contracts with restaurants and hotels, so that restaurants can provide meal services and it's paid for with public money, so that hotels can make rooms available, and that it's if there is a housing crisis, or if we do have a housing crisis, but if it becomes even worse and people are losing housing, maybe we can contract with some of these businesses that don't have much business right now, so that they can help us augment our municipal services in the event of an emergency.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Cynthia. Rafael, you have about 1 minute to talk about parking, and then 2 minutes to sum up.
Thank you. Good job, by the way.
Thank you.
Parking problems will not stop until we get rid of the cars. We just have too many cars, but we need to work with the citizens of the Heights, and the zoning that they came up with a few years ago. I do like the zoning that they have created, but it's on a basis of 24-hour charging, 24 hours, and I just don't see them at night. I do see them early, but I don't see them all day. And so stopping these parking is just getting rid of the cars. But I also think that what the mayor's been doing with the bicycle lanes, if we could get them protected and brought into the Heights, would be a home run, and it would be what I like to see. And that would alleviate. Let's get rid of the problem by not using cars. So bicycles are very important. So thank you. Like I said, thank you for giving me this opportunity. God is great. And thanks to the candidates who have been running a campaign during this pandemic. Who would thought? I know every one of you is encouraged to support the Jersey City Heights in all that you do, regardless of who wins. I also like to support the winner to bring a better place to our residents of Jersey City. If I win, I will be the first Hispanic to become the council person in the Heights. I may be wrong, but I think I might be right. With that, the path to becoming a council person has always been the only step that can be taken to help the Heights residents. My lifelong commitment as a public safety officer, artist, and activist has put me in a good place to represent you, especially during these trying times. My life experience have not ended at this point to give the Jersey City resident the best chance to achieve a prosperous future. This job will be a full-time commitment for me, not like my fellow candidates who are young and early in their careers. As a retired public safety officer, I can only achieve the best response to these times to assist families in need, especially the education process that's currently having the biggest problem. These families are going through the hardest times that we ever saw in the city. Thanks for the union workers and all the essential heroes that kept us alive. Thanks to Stop and Shop. They've been tremendous to my life. And our first responders who still have some work to go. Stay the course, as the Governor Cuomo said in New York, and stay New York, Jersey strong. Thanks everyone at the Riverview Park and the numerous groups that helped to provide this forum. I wish you are safe and educated to make the right choice to pick a councilman that is what you like to see. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Rafael. Did I go out of order again? I tell you. Did everybody get a chance to speak? Somebody remind me. Did I go out of did I know Patrick spoke, Cynthia, Yusuf, did I go out of order again?
You gave the councilman the last.
That was not on purpose. That was it's
It's
9:46 and
okay.
Jocelyn can't do
I love
alphabetical
you.
order. Okay, so that's not what that was. Okay, so you have a minute to talk about parking and then 2 minutes to summarize.
Okay, so for as long as I can remember, I know that parking has been a very huge issue in the Heights, and steps we have taken to ameliorate that or to mitigate those problems. We are in the transition now from going from 4 times a week street cleaning to 2 times a week. I know that anyone that lives in the Heights knows that that is a godsend. So we are changing that to 2 times a week. We are building a parking deck, and as of right now, there's about 1,500 people that come into work in the Heights every day. No, 1,500 people work in the Heights every day. 500 of those are vehicles that come from outside. This parking deck will help house those 500 vehicles during the morning. And then in the evenings and on the weekends, residents will be able to park there. And so that is something that we're looking at. Enforcement. I've been on the Western Slopes on Sunday night, and I've seen so many out-of-state plates. So we need to do better enforcement on the Western Slopes, especially if the residents down there have to walk up those hills. A lot of them are old timers that we need to make sure we're protecting, and we need better enforcement down there. So I'm working with the director of parking on that. And
Okay, and your summary?
Yep, my summary. It's been an absolute honor and privilege and the highest honor of my life to serve as your councilman during some of the roughest periods that we will ever experience in our lives. We are a neighborhood of strivers and sacrificers. We are a neighborhood of dreamers and achievers, families of generation old and families of new, collars of white and collars of blue. Jersey City is the golden door of America and also the crossroads of the world. And together, we need to forge through this historic time in a clear, coherent, and unified way. And that is the only way to move forward right now. And I can disagree passionately with the mayor. We will have our disagreements, but the mayor lives here in the Heights. He has a daughter coming in another week. He wants to see safety and security as much as anyone else. He wants to see clean streets just as much as anybody else. And I am forgoing the political debates of past. I'm working alongside the mayor to make sure that we can move the Heights forward. Make no mistake that we are living through history, but we are the masters of our destiny. And if you want to go fast, you go it alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So I ask you, all of my neighbors, to vote 1M for Councilman Yusuf J. Saleh so that we can bring the Heights forward and we do it together. And whoever wins this race, Godspeed. I am here for you and I'm going to help you along this way. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much. I can't even express how appreciative both our listening audience, the neighborhood associations, and probably Tyson too, because I think we gave Tyson a good workout tonight. So I want to definitely, give a shout out to our ASL interpreter who has been working diligently to keep track of everything that we're saying so that people who are not able to be able to hear this can at least be able to participate in something that is a very important part of democracy. That concludes our Ward D Council Candidate Forum. I want to thank all the candidates for their participation. I also want to thank Riverview Neighborhood Association, Heights Community Coalition, Washington Park Association, Heights Votes, and Pershing Field Neighborhood Association, as well as Mo Kinberg for their active participation in this candidate forum. Don't forget, we've got a board election forum on Thursday. You can find out about that on the RNA website at rnajc.org. You'll also see it on social media. It's going to be a Zoom meeting. It doesn't make any sense for me to read you all the Zoom things stuff. Just go to the rnajc.org website and you'll see the poster and information there. I want to thank everyone watching on Facebook and YouTube. Have a good night and stay safe, everyone.
Thank you, Jocelyn.
night.
Yeah,
Good
thank you
job.
very much.
Good night. I'm going to
Thank
end the
you.
broadcast now. Take care, everyone.
Bye, Jocelyn.